With financial security and employee well-being more important than ever, expert guidance in corporate benefits is key. I'm speaking with Henré Prinsloo, Head of Employee Benefits and Actuarial Consulting at Momentum Consultants and Actuaries, to unpack the trends, challenges, and opportunities in this space. Welcome, Henré.
Cool. Thank you so much, Renette, and thank you for having me.
Momentum Consultants and Actuaries offers a broad range of corporate financial solutions. To set the scene, please introduce yourself, Henré, your role, and then maybe a little bit about the business and its bigger purpose.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. So my name is Henré. As you mentioned, I look after the Employee Benefits and Actuarial Consulting team at MCA. And what that entails is we have a team of consultants and actuaries who consult to boards of trustees, employers, so both standalone funds and umbrella funds, and also then across the wide spectrum. So we consult to both momentum funds and also then external funds. So we get a nice broad range of the industry. And yeah, in terms of our purpose, so the Momentum Group purpose is to build and protect our clients' financial dreams. And from a corporate point of view, sometimes we're a little bit removed from the ultimate member or the ultimate employee. Although from our point of view, we definitely try to consult with the member or the employee in mind so that we keep that sort of the concept of building and protecting an individual's dreams alive in the stuff that we do, even if it's at a slightly higher corporate level.
Yeah. I'd like to start our conversation with some of the key trends you guys have picked up in the EB space in the last year or two. I'm sure that scene is changing constantly. And then after that, we'll dive into a little bit more specific topics.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the industry has definitely undergone a lot of change, and we can't talk trends without talking two-pot, I don't think. So certainly we've seen a lot of activity around two-pot, a lot of people accessing their funds. But I think also on the positive side, what we're seeing is that there's this big shift in engagement with specifically retirement benefits. But then I think also as a knock-on effect, other benefits and sort of just overall financial aspects. So where you had people historically never engaging with their retirement funds or risk benefits or health benefits, you sort of had people just having the medical aid that they have and having the retirement fund that they had without really thinking about it much until much later in their life. I think we're seeing people across the age spectrum really engaging with their benefits now, which I think is certainly a big positive.
Yeah.
Obviously, technology affects everything we do. The way we communicate, the fact that we're having this interview today, in different locations is testament to some of the technology that's out there. And as we know, it's evolving at a rapid pace. So that certainly will continue to play a role, and has played a massive role in the development of the industry so far. And then I think definitely that sort of the flexibility that people require. So we've seeing a very diverse range of people in a workforce at the moment across all metrics, including race, gender, age. And so we're seeing this wide need that people have different needs across their sort of lifespan within a company or within a pension fund. And so that brings with it a lot of challenges, but also a lot of opportunity. So I think that's where we would see most of the stuff happening.
Yeah, so my next question was going to touch on the fact that we are sitting with a diverse range of employees. Profiles are changing. What do you think is the biggest challenges for corporates to get that balance right in terms of the benefits they offer clients, especially when you talk flexibility and personalization? What is really the stuff that people want or not so bad?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the challenge there is just the wide range of things. So you have this people have such diverse needs, and even people that are very similar in profile would have very different needs potentially.
Yeah.
So I think that's the challenge that corporates globally face, is trying to figure out do our employees want the pool table in the break room, or do they want more money, or do they want paid lunches, or what are the things that they're looking for? And I think from a benefits point of view, the challenges are the same. It's trying to figure out where you can get the most output for the cost that you're incurring. And I think that's always the challenge, right? Is that there'll always be a cost to something, and we must make sure that we're getting the value from it that we're looking for. And I think for employers particularly, that remains one of the key challenges is to find that sweet spot where, ideally you would want to customize everything to the T for every individual, but realistically that's not always practical. And maybe one day with the advances in technology, we'll be able to get there. But at the moment, you need to have flexibility, but also then, there needs to be some sort of standardization. And I think that's the challenge, is finding that balance of being able to provide benefits and being able to provide, things to employees that are part of the wider employee value proposition. So not just benefits, we're talking, office spaces, working environments, working conditions, flexibility, hybrid, work from home, all that sort of stuff all fits together. And I think that's the key, is to try and understand how we can fit all the stuff together to provide the most optimal solution for our employees.
What is generally that you've picked up non-negotiables? If you had to identify one or two things, what are non-negotiables for employees?
Yeah, so I mean, the obvious one would be pay, but I think there's been quite a lot of research out there around, what pay levels need to be. And I think once you reach a sort of a minimum level of pay, everybody, I think in their head will have a very minimum level of pay at which they would sort of not work. But above that, once you sort of reach the level where people are comfortable, then it becomes about, I think, being seen, being heard, being valued, having opportunities to grow, and feeling invested in by their employer. So, not feeling like you're just a number or just somebody that could be replaced tomorrow, but that, your employer, truly cares about you and sees you and sees the contribution that you make. And I think that is probably a greater human condition. We all want to be seen and heard, but certainly within the working environment, I think that's become really important for employers to consider, that, employees need to be understood and heard, and especially when it comes to things like their benefits and their pay. Obviously, you can't cater to absolutely everything, but definitely being open and being able to listen and making people feel seen and heard, even if they don't necessarily get the answer that they're looking for. At least having that respectful interaction, I think, is very important.
Mental health is really becoming a very important topic in our industry and in the EB space, right? Can you see that there were some really big changes in what employers want to give their employees in terms of specifically mental health?
Yeah, so I think on the mental health, it's always a tricky one, because I think there's been a huge amount of progress on the mental health side. I think it's become a lot more normalized to talk about. I think, most employers are at least aware that, mental health is really important for both them and their employees. And I think where the challenge remains is making it widely accessible, but also making it more normalized so that people aren't afraid. I think oftentimes employers will sort of have some sort of support service, whether that be internal or external, but there's always the onus on the employee to sort of come forward if they're struggling. And we know that it's quite difficult and quite vulnerable when you're struggling to come forward, whereas sort of that more proactive, more normalized, more, just sort of less stressful, idea of what mental health looks like and what it doesn't look like. I think when we think of mental health, we often think of, people struggling with depression, anxiety, but, being mentally well, we think of the mental unwellness, but mental wellness is not necessarily the absence of, not being well. So you can, there's the difference between thriving and surviving. And I think often, my view on mental health is definitely that we need to be looking to thrive. And so making sure that we're doing things that make our mental health optimal rather than just not, breaking down.
Yeah, very good point. You mentioned technology when you spoke about trends, and I think that has really pushed the opportunities in terms of engagement for people with the EB benefits a lot higher. What do you see in that space? Did it help? Does technology really change the way people engage, and do they know more about what is going on in their affairs?
Oh, definitely. So I think, technology is an interesting one, because when we talk technology, often we think only of sort of advanced AI and the next, the robots are coming and all that sort of stuff. I think what we're seeing on our side is that the wide range of technologies that people are becoming more comfortable with. So for example, I think with Two-Pot, we saw a lot of engagement on our WhatsApp channels. So, WhatsApp being seen as a fairly rudimentary technology these days. But we're seeing that massive amounts of people are very comfortable to drop a WhatsApp and ask questions on WhatsApp, which I think is amazing. I think that gives them access to answers and services and products that they wouldn't have access to otherwise. And it really does open the door for that engagement. Absolutely. Then other things like, being able to provide things like benefit statements electronically and smart benefit statements, as we have at Momentum, where you're able to really click through into your benefits and really play around with them, which I think also then makes things a bit more accessible for people so that they have the ability to engage with actually what's going on. So I think absolutely technology has and will continue to in the future play a huge role in how we're able to get this engagement and get people on board with what's going on in the industry.
Yeah, I think that email that you get, used to get in the past, I mean, you still get your email with your benefit statement. You throw it in a folder and you can read it later.
Absolutely.
With accessibility on it now, is you really can look at the numbers, which was a huge issue for so many years. People reach their retirement age or 5 years from retirement and they realize, oops, not enough money.
Absolutely. And I think also an important point you touched on there is I think people are starting to engage with this stuff a lot earlier.
Yeah.
So, in the past, exactly, you'd look at your benefits 5 years from retirement. And now we're seeing, people across the spectrum, not only looking to withdraw their two-pot money, but also just looking at what's going on in their fund. What do I have? What's available? Trying to understand, what's going on. And I think that's amazing. And that's something that we should definitely keep encouraging and keep pushing for.
And that's great because it links to my next question around the role of the advisor and the importance of the advisor, because a company can offer only so many things. And especially when we talk retirement, there are so many things that the employer can offer and not more. But that's when the advisor also plays a key role in taking that conversations to the next level. But in terms of the EB space, the broker's role, how important is that?
Yeah, so obviously from our point of view as a corporate broker, I feel like we play an incredibly crucial role for employers and for pension funds to be able to navigate this very complex environment. I think when you break it down one step further to an individual advisor's role, I believe it's absolutely crucial. I mean, I think, you see people that are very highly educated that, know quite a lot of stuff that still struggle with fairly basic concepts when it comes to finance. And I think what that also invites is that, talking about money is quite a vulnerable process for many people. And particularly talking about money when you don't really know what, you don't really understand. It's quite difficult for people to come forward and say, I don't understand this, maybe I should understand it, but I don't. And so I think for me, the crucial role of the advisor is, number one, the advice is important. But number two is that accessibility and being able to let people ask the so-called stupid question, which, in my view, there's never a stupid question.
Yes.
But people do feel this tension and this anxiety. We've seen people in our walk-in centers when they're coming to talk about their two-pot money, they're anxious, they're scared, they're a bit nervous, they're intimidated. They know they need somebody to help explain it, but they're a bit shy to ask. And so, we need to probably think about how we engage with people from our point of view as advisors so that we make it accessible. We make it, we appreciate that level of anxiety and vulnerability and tension that people are coming to us with is there, and making sure that we are sensitive to that and able to sort of navigate that with them, because then they'll be open to a lot of the advice which I think they desperately need.
I really love it how the corporates and the advisors have stepped in when we speak two-pot. I think in the initial stages of two-pot, it was like a huge issue for everyone. I think there was initially a lot more negativity than there was positivity. But when you hear some of the feedback and the things that you mentioned around the fact that that sort of forced people to really look at what is it that they have available and what are the implications of them withdrawing some of the money, really opened up a lot of positive conversations and engagement to not only stop there, but take it further.
Absolutely. Oh, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, 100%.
What should companies do different to ensure their financial and employee benefit strategies remains future fit?
Yeah, so I think for me, it's definitely this idea of an ecosystem. So when you view an individual or an employee or even a company, we're all operating within an ecosystem. And so, as advisors and as companies, when we're providing benefits to our people, I think the idea of looking at it all holistically, so not as your retirement benefits are, one piece, and then your risk benefits is a piece, and health, and your other investments, and all this other stuff. I think it's very important. I don't think you can look at any of the stuff in isolation. I think it's really important that we consider the holistic view of a lot of things. And I think a lot of the world has moved towards these, more holistic views about lots of different topics. And I think certainly for employers, the challenge will be, will remain to consider this all holistically. Flexibility is always going to be important. The ability to harness technology to use it responsibly and effectively. Everybody wants to jump on the technology bandwagon, but there's a way of doing it right and there's a way of doing it wrong. And certainly we need to be responsible with how we manage these affairs. And so, adopting technology is crucial. And I think that, the companies that will get ahead in the future will be those that are able to effectively use technology, but to continue to blend it with that human element where, there has to be some compassion, some humanity around, especially when we're talking about people's finances and benefits. I think you can't really remove the humanity out of it, I don't think.
Yeah, and that's great. That's a good, positive thing for the role of the advisor. I want to touch quickly on small businesses. A lot of our advisors and brokers speak to people running small businesses. What are the trends in that space? Do small businesses really engage in terms of EB? If they do, what are the minimum things that they basically look at? Maybe just something that you can share there for us.
Yeah, so I think from the wider Momentum point of view, we've definitely seen a lot more engagement with smaller employers. So obviously on the smaller employer side, some of the challenges involve cost. So, when you're running a very tight ship and a very lean ship, every cent that you spend is needs to be very carefully considered. So you are always balancing this need for things, but also the cost of those things. And so that's quite difficult. But I think what we're seeing in the industry and particularly in our business is that we're seeing a lot more smaller companies trying to do something. So whether that just be a basic retirement fund, some basic risk benefits, or basic medical, we're seeing a lot of people. And I think in our business, we're seeing companies joining us for the first time from nowhere else. So introducing benefits for the first time, which is really wonderful to see, because that's not just recycling people through the industry. It's new people joining the industry, acknowledging the need for some of these benefits, and then having the ability to participate. And I think certainly across the industry there are a number of providers that are very well aware of the role of those small businesses in our economy, and trying to make sure that we tailor some sort of benefits or some sort of services that they can also participate in.
That is very positive for you. And I also think that activates people's ideas and minds around the fact that they need more. Okay, there is some basic provision made for me, but delving into this, I actually really need more. And then they take their own personal journeys where they not necessarily might have done that without that basic knowledge and basic advice. So that's really great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that access to, to just the idea of financial services, financial products, financial thinking, financial well-being, planning, all that sort of stuff, I think is crucial. And I agree. Opening the door, certainly a positive for those people.
100%. And it's something that we battle with on the short-term side, is getting the new blood in terms of the insurance. So that's really very, very, very positive. Looking ahead, Henré, what do you see as the biggest shift in the EV space?
Yeah, so I think I've said it earlier, but this idea of the ecosystem, right? So the idea of everything being holistic, so stuff being all together, flexibility in how we pick and choose from the things that are available, the use of technology, absolutely, making it easy for people to access not only products and services, which I think is important, but also information, and information in a way that is meaningful to them. Because I think, we've spoken about member and employee education for years. And I think we're only sort of now starting to see where people are really starting to get it, right? So there's still a long way to go. Don't get me wrong. I think sometimes we don't make information accessible as easily as we should, or as easily as it could be for lots of people to benefit from that. But certainly, using technology starts making that a lot easier and a lot more accessible to a lot more people. And I think just holistically considering the people that we serve is always important. And so I think, being able to combine all these elements of the ecosystem, technology, and remaining, keeping that human, that authentic connection that we just, as humans, we just need in amongst all of this stuff that can be quite inhuman sometimes. Finance can be quite cold and, not human. We just want to, build the money and the numbers. But I think for me, the humanity is always a crucial element. So I would leave it at that.
I love that last comment. That is really cool. Thank you, Henré, for your time. I really appreciate it. It's always an interesting space for me. And the positive thing I'm taking from this conversation is that there is most certainly improvement. People do engage more, and someday we'll win this battle.
Absolutely. And thank you very much for your time. I've really enjoyed talking to you today. Thank you.